What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons to buy the TCL 4X 5G. Now before we go any further, as always, I do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, and if you want to learn more about this phone, I will be linking to several other videos about it in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So my first reason why you should buy the TCL 4X 5G is the processor. Now, as the name suggests, of course, this is a 5G phone, making it honestly one of the most affordable 5G phones you could possibly get. At full price, this phone retails for somewhere around $150, and personally, I actually got it on sale for somewhere around $80. Now, in addition to 5G connectivity, for a phone that I got for $80, the TCL 4X 5G is definitely really fast. With 4GB of RAM and the Qualcomm Snapdragon 480 5G processor, you can expect to get some real good performance here. Sure, it's not going to be anywhere near as fast as a $1,400 flagship phone, for example, but compared to pretty much any other phone in this price range, this is definitely going to be one of the faster options. So while, again, this phone is still definitely not going to be near the level of a higher-end device, for the average user, for more basic daily activities like web browsing, social media, streaming content like music and videos, and even some mobile gaming here and there, for that kind of activity, the TCL 4X 5G will definitely get the job done, and I do think most people will have a good experience with this phone. Now, I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone, and here are the scores I got. What I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and comparing your results to these, and that's going to give you a better idea of whether or not this phone will be an upgrade for you. Because of course, depending on what you currently have, it may or may not be. If you're coming from more of a mid-range or entry-level phone, I do think this phone will probably be a solid upgrade, but if you're coming from maybe an older flagship phone like a Samsung Galaxy S10, then again, keep in mind, while this is a really fast phone for what it is, it's still not going to be quite at that level. But again, in general, for being such an affordable phone, I do think the performance we get with the TCL 4X 5G is pretty impressive. My second reason why you should buy the TCL 4X 5G is the camera. Now to give you a quick rundown of the camera features, with this phone, we got a water drop notch for the front-facing camera. This camera is 13 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 16 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. So in general, this phone has pretty much every camera feature you could ask for, despite it being a really entry-level phone. To put this into perspective, most phones in this price range barely even have macro cameras, let alone a macro camera and an ultra-wide camera. So in general, at a price point where phones typically tend to have really featureless camera setups, the TCL 4X 5G definitely is impressive. And in case you're wondering, despite this phone not having a depth sensing camera, portrait mode does work pretty well, so you won't have to worry about that either. So again, if you're taking a lot of photos, maybe to share on social media, for example, for a more affordable phone like this, the TCL 4X 5G really does have a great camera. The third reason why you should buy the TCL 4X 5G is the materials. Now on one hand, when compared to a much more expensive phone, this really doesn't look or feel super premium, but at the same time, keep in mind that again, this phone goes for around $150. And again, I personally got it for $80, and for an $80 phone, you're really not going to find very many phones with this kind of quality. Sure, it is made entirely of plastic, and as you can see, the back clearly does pick up some fingerprints, but at the same time, the plastic does feel pretty good quality. It doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart or anything. And the build quality in general, like the buttons for example, all do feel pretty sturdy. In addition to this, the phone does have a decent amount of weight to it. So again, while it doesn't feel super premium or anything, especially when compared to a mid-range or higher end device, for being a $150 phone, the TCL 4X 5G definitely doesn't feel cheap. The fourth reason why you should buy the TCL 4X 5G is the security options. So with this phone, we not only have a fingerprint scanner, but we're getting face unlock here as well. Now on one hand, if this were a much higher end device, this would be more or less an expectation because mid-range phones typically do have both. But again, just considering this price range, the vast majority of really entry-level phones either have only a fingerprint scanner or only face unlock, and some of them don't have either. But again, with this phone, we are getting both face unlock and a fingerprint scanner, and the fingerprint scanner itself is actually pretty fast and responsive, so definitely no complaints here. So if you're looking for a lower end phone that has multiple options to unlock it besides just a pin, then you are going to be happy with this phone. And finally, my fifth reason to buy the TCL 4X 5G is the battery. Now with this phone, we're getting a 4500 mAh battery, and while on one hand, it's not quite a 5000 mAh battery, keep in mind that with a lot of phones you can get for less than $200, phones like this do tend to have much smaller batteries. And not only this, but in my experience, despite having a 4500 mAh battery and not 5000, the TCL 4X 5G does actually get pretty good battery life, and I personally haven't had any issues. In addition to this, the charging speeds are actually pretty good too. So in general, if you're looking for a phone with a really good battery, whether you have a more mobile lifestyle and you're not always around a charger, or maybe you are typically around a charger all day, but you want good battery life for when you're not, whatever the case may be, when it comes to battery, for a more entry-level phone, the TCL 4X 5G is definitely going to be a great choice. But those were 5 reasons to buy the TCL 4X 5G. In general, for what it is, this is actually a really impressive phone, and I do think there are a lot more than 5 reasons to buy it. But like any phone, it does have several drawbacks, which I will be going over in another video. video. So if you want to learn more about this phone, again, I will be linking to several other videos about it in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalip's Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.